Okay, so now that we have a root for random quotes, let's finally make our endpoint for random numbers. So I'm gonna put in app.get, and for this we're gonna do /random/number, and we're gonna open up another arrow function with request and response. And inside of here, for now, we can just do like res.send hello from random number route. Okay, so I'm gonna save this file, and we can do npm run start. Okay, and it's building, and we're just gonna check and make sure that the endpoint is working with this hello world. So okay, so our server is running. I'm just gonna copy in our URL again, and then go on to Postman, paste it in, and it's /random/number. And we can see that we're getting hello from random number root. Okay, great, this is working. We can stop the server, and we can actually start writing our random number root. So first, I'm going to make two variables, min and max, and I'm just going to say like min is request.query.min, and that max is request.query.max, and I'm going to explain what this is in just a second. But yeah, let's just save this file. And what I want to do is console.log min and then max. Okay, so now I actually have to explain what the request.query.min means. So the request is what we have initialized over here in our parentheses. Request is like inside of there, and it has a property called query, and this is a query parameter, and then it's the actual name of the parameter that we're looking for, and in this case that's min. And the same thing for max, so request.query.max. So now you might be wondering, once we run this, how do we actually send in a request parameter or a query parameter? So that's what we are going to be looking at right now. So let me just rerun the server, and I'm just initializing it like this in one line because it's just easier. And hopefully when we send a request, then we will get something returned in the console. Okay, so our server is running. Now if I click send, it's just going to return like nothing in the console. So see min undefined and then max undefined. So you can see over here, we get undefined and undefined. So now how do we actually put in a parameter? So you can see in Postman, there's an option called params, and you get a key and a value. So I'm just gonna click min, like inside of key, I'm gonna type in min, then let's just say like 10, okay? And you can see up here, some text pops up right after our URL. So right after the /random/number, we're getting like a question mark and then min equals 10. And now when I send this request, we get min equals 10 and max is undefined. So now what if I add something else called max? Then like let's say 100. So instead of another question mark, we're instead getting like the and symbol over here. So it's like question mark min equals 10 and max equals 100. So our server over here knows how to look for min and max. So you can see request.query.min, it's looking for that min parameter, and request.query.max, so it's looking for that max query parameter. So now how can we actually use these parameters in order to generate a random number? So that's what we are going to be doing right now. Let me turn off the server. Okay, so we can get rid of this line for now. Actually, let me just comment it out, and let's use our min and max to generate a random number. So we're gonna replace this with some backticks instead. I'm just gonna say like random number, right? And then, so how do you actually generate a random number? So I'm just gonna initialize a variable called a random number, and random number equals math.floor, and then math.random. And you can see it's very similar to what we have over here, math.floor, math.random. So times, and then in this instance we do max minus min plus 1, then at the end plus min. Now you can see that we are getting a bunch of errors over here, so let's take a look. So we're first getting operator plus cannot be applied to types number and string. Then the right hand side, the left hand side must be of type any, number, big int, or an enum type. So what's going on right now is that TypeScript realizes that we can pass in anything as min or max. For example, I can put like min like blah 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 blah, and obviously you can't find a random number between like blah 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 and 100, so this is throwing an error. So how do we actually make sure that we're only returning a number, not like a string, not like a blank value, inside of our query parameters? And this is where middleware comes into play. Middleware is like a function that happens before our actual endpoint, like that logic. It's called a controller. So this is like a controller function. So a middleware function occurs before a controller function, and it can be there to like do like a console.log saying like this middleware was run, but for more practical purposes, it's to like filter out responses of what's valid and what's not. And a type of middleware that filters out responses is called a guard usually. So it's like a guard middleware. So how do we create a middleware? So that's a good question. What I'm gonna do is delete these two lines for now. We don't need them. And a middleware is just a regular old function. So I can just say like function, then root guard. I'm just calling it like root guard, or like maybe I should name it random number guard, in case like you ever want to add guards for other roots, you know which one's for which. And we're again going to initialize a request and response, but now we're going to initialize something else as well. We're going to say next and then next function, and you can see up top next function is added to the import over here, and open up the curly brackets. So now the next function, I'm going to get into what exactly it does in just a second, but for now let's actually just do like console.log middleware function ran. And let me change this to something like random number route. And we can delete this line. And now how do we actually call the middleware function? Right after listing like our root, in this case /random/number, right after that we're just going to put in the name of our middleware function, and then parentheses, don't add parentheses, and then comma, and then your actual controller logic. So I'm going to save this, and when we run it, you're going to see that something interesting is going to happen. So this is going to take a second to run, but this middleware function is going to be called as soon as we go to this root, since it's before our controller logic, and Express always runs middleware in the order that it's listed. So if we have multiple middlewares like random number guard 2, and if I put it after this random number guard over here, if I like copy this, the function does not really like exist, but let's just pretend it does. It's gonna run the first one and then random number guard 2. So let me just undo this, and great, so our server is running. Now back in Postman, if I click send, it's gonna say sending requests, and you can see in our terminal it says middleware function ran. You can see over here middleware function ran, but nothing is actually happening in our Postman. It's still stuck on sending. So let me cancel this and stop the server. And why this is happening is because once the middleware function is run, Express doesn't know that it should go to the next function, which in this situation is our controller logic. So we have to explicitly tell Express to go to the next function, and that's quite literally what it's named. You can see over here, next function, that's the name of it, and that's literally what it does. It just tells Express to go on to the next function. So we can just call it like this and hit save, and I'm not going to run it again because it's going to take forever to compile and run. But basically what it's going to do is it lets Express know that this middleware has finished running and that it can go on to the next function or next controller logic listed inside of our endpoint. Okay, great. Now what if we actually want to stop a request? So let's say if not 1 equals 2, something like that, or if not null, right? And then I can put return res.send invalid. I guess we can just leave it like that. This is just an expression. I think I should remove the not. So for example, if null, this is going to return. If true, we'll just do something like this. So if true, return res.send invalid. And what this is going to do is return the function, so nothing after this will run, this will never run, but what's inside of here will run. And we're going to do res.send, so this will actually send a response back to the user or the person who's sending the request. So that's how we actually make sure that invalid requests gets weeded out, by returning the function and also doing res.send or res.json in order to return a response back to the user. Okay, so now that we know this, let's get rid of all of this, but we can keep a next. And I'm gonna make 2 variables right now. One is const max, then const min. And max is going to be a parsed int request.query.max as string, and this is going to be parse int, not parsed int. Okay, great. And if we try and put number over here, it's gonna work. Then const min number equals parse int, then request.query.min this time as string, and we can save this. And now finally we have to actually weed it out. So if I guess not in or is not a number, max, or is not a number, min. And this is also going to trigger if we don't give any parameters, because undefined is not a number. We're going to do return res.status 400, and what this status does is it returns an HTTP status code. For example, 200 is success, in this case 400 is invalid request. And then dot send, I guess, invalid request. But if everything is good and it is valid, I'm just gonna go on with the next function. And over here our middleware is being called, and we get a random number root this response if the controller logic is successfully ran. So I'm going to do npm run start. Let's see if this middleware works out and is able to catch any invalid requests. Okay, and the server is running. Okay, so let's just get rid of these for now and click send, and we are getting an invalid request. And even if I just add 1, still getting invalid. If I add max, still getting invalid because this is a string. And if I set this to like 100 as well, we get random number root. If I set this to like -100, still works. Like any number, like 0 even. Yeah, anything that's a number, it will work. Great, so we've successfully made a middleware function that stops any requests, parameters, query parameters that are not a number, so it stops those type of requests. And if the request is valid, then it goes on to the controller logic. So now let's stop the terminal once again. And now we finally have to make the logic for the random number generator. So you're gonna see another error come up in this line of code. Random number equals, like, let's just say min, right? It's gonna say like cannot find name min. So why is this? That's because like we don't have min defined, and it's kind of inefficient to like do like const min equals request dot query dot min. All of that's not going to work because that's just like really inefficient. So instead we can do something like this. Before our next function, make sure it's before, we can do like request dot min equals min, and request dot max equals max. Okay, so we have these two lines of code, and we're getting two errors as you can see over here. So if I open them up, property min does not exist on type request, and property max does not exist on type request. And if we go to request and see, we see that this is a string any. Yeah, so there's nothing called min. So we're gonna create a custom interface, and we can just call it interface custom requests. Sorry, no space. And then extends request. Then I'm just gonna say min as a number, and then max as a number. Okay, great. Now all we have to do is replace request with custom request, and the error instantly goes away because now min and max are part of custom request. And now inside of our controller logic, I can just say, like, for example, const min equals request dot min. And again, property min does not exist, so we have to replace request with custom request over here as well. As you can see, the error goes away. So we can now say const min max, and then I'm just gonna say min number max number equals min request dot min max request dot max, and we can save this. Okay, so what this is doing is creating the two variables min and max, and then giving them like the types of number. Then we're taking them from request.min and request.max, or REQ instead of request. And now we can try like our const random number equals math.floor math.random times max minus min plus 1, then at the end plus min. And as you can see, when we do this line of code now, we do not get any errors. And now finally we can return this. I'm just gonna do like res.json instead of send, and I can just say like random number, and then inside of here like the random number. Okay, let's save this, and this should now work. So let's try npm run start. Okay, so our server is now running. Let's see if this works. Send, and we're getting random number like 46, 73, 2. If I put in like a random value like string, the server realizes this and gives us like invalid requests, and then as soon as we like change it back, the server realizes that as well. And if we also provide like some missing values, then our server can realize that as well. So great, we've created the random number generator that we wanted to make, and we also have a route for random quotes. So if I do random quote, we are getting random quotes as well. So great, our server is running. Now the next step is, as you can see, all of our code is very messy and it's not exactly good because everything's just written into one file, and this means that it's not very scalable, especially if you want to add more modules and more routes and more middlewares. So we're going to take a look on how to actually clean up this code and make it more scalable.